Welcome to Rauta's Challenging the Classics. It's once again time to talk about a claimed classic album and ponder whether or not this title is kind of deserved. Whether this album is good or not, or something in between, or maybe even more. Well, let's welcome Exodus and Bonded by Blood, the debut album from 1985. Before we get into that particular album, which is indeed a very much like one of the founding fathers, that is, the basics of thrash metal of all countries and all, it's time to really ponder a little bit of Exodus and its position in American thrash metal scene. Now, everybody knows that Big Four of thrash metal consists of these four American old school veteran names. Metallica being the kind of a spearhead, but obviously Slayer, Anthrax and Megadeth being part of that whole deal there. But why isn't Exodus exactly there? I mean, it is already older band. I mean, that's the only one that was founded in the 70s. Metallica came 2 years later, obviously having taken kidnapped, if you will. Now, just kidding aside, Kirk Hammett from Exodus being one, then again, founding father of Exodus as one of the guys. But, Kirk Hammett later on joined Metallica and we know the story. And obviously Slayer and, Megadeth, Anthrax came to the game a little bit later on. But however, despite this being the very fact that we are talking about here, the funny thing is, Exodus was a little bit late to the party when it came to their debut album. That is, they joined the game in 1985, not like Metallica a couple of years earlier and already actually having 2 albums out by the time Exodus did their debut album. Which puts Exodus a little bit in their kind of a weird position, being there before others, but then again being late to the party with the debut album. So how does this pan out when compared to the other debut albums out there, especially when we're talking about bands like Slayer with their Show No Mercy and Kill 'Em All by Metallica? Now, as much as I love Kill 'Em All, I've never been that much of a fan of Show No Mercy, with its roots being even more there in the British heavy metal and having those heavy metal parts. When again, Kill 'Em All is pure old school thrash metal. But when we're comparing that to Bonded by Blood, it seems like Bonded by Blood is way more, mature in a way. Like more powerful, more aggressive, and darker too. Now, Show No Mercy has its own elements that some people consider even to be the kind of a prototype for many black metal bands later on, flirting with the devil and darkness, Satan and all that stuff. Whereas Kill 'Em All was, just kind of a teenager guys, paying homage to heavy metal and thrash metal and, banging heads and whatever. So it was more like a teenager thing compared to what Bonded by Blood is, which is then again a hell of a lot harder and more intense album, in my opinion, than Show No Mercy. But what makes this curious is that Bonded by Blood actually has lyrics that are related to violence and war and, yes, Satan. Lucifer, even Loki, the Asgardian god of mischief, is mentioned there, which is kind of interesting because really it isn't what Kill 'Em All was doing all that back in the days. So maybe a little bit late to the party, but then again having this wonderful and very fierce album full of fury, kind of a thrash metal. And that's something that we can just put aside and say, yeah guys, you tried, but you became late to the party and all that stuff. In fact, that's one of the reasons why, in my opinion, Bonded by Blood is one of the best thrash metal albums of all time. Now, I can't say it's my absolute favorite. That credit goes to Rain Blood, but still, this is definitely one of those spearhead albums for me anyway, when we're talking about thrash metal. I mean, if you were to ask me, like, hey, what are those others? I would have to drop a couple of names from Metallica. I would have to drop a couple of names from Slayer. But when we're talking about top 3 or top 5 of thrash metal albums, Bonded by Blood is definitely up there. And why so? I'll try to explain why I like it so much and why I think you should be listening to it as well. Now, throughout these 40 minutes and 9 songs, everything is right there. The riffs are just magic, they're intense, they're fierce, they're just right to the point. And even more so, this album has great vocals done by none else than Paul Baloff, rest in peace. I mean, he had way more powerful vocals compared to what, Tom Araya had with the debut Slayer album. And as much as a lot of Araya's vocals, Paul Baloff was the man back in the days. I mean, he was like, bigger guy, I guess, obviously brings a little bit of, extra value or extra potent right there. I don't know. But it does matter that those vocals are just top of their game. Compared to Kill 'Em All, yeah, no chance. Baloff takes it all. But it's also about riffs. Now, none of the riffs are anything that could be considered filler on Bonded by Blood. Everything has its place and they're fucking great all the way through. Not only that, but all the songs are fucking great as well. I mean, there is no filler part in Bonded by Blood. I mean, there are lots of albums, even really, really good ones that have those killer parts, and then there's a little bit of a filler there. Even as much as I like Ride the Lightning, there are a couple of songs which I don't like just that much as the rest of the album. And even so, is still very, very close to being 10 out of 10 album for me. So this is my point right here. Much like Rain in Blood by Slayer, Bonded by Blood is filled with great songs, great riffs, great vocals and all that stuff. Now, lyrics-wise, this might be not that great of an album, but then again, it's the debut album, and debut albums tend to be a little bit weaker, usually, than some albums coming later on. Now, all of these lyrics are pretty much kind of something that could be summarizing the whole extreme metal thing. I mean, there were parts where it is definitely closer to death metal, being about stabbing and killing and, blood and violence. Yeah, it's pretty basic, and it's not like, wow, they're so brutal, or they're just kind of goofy. They're somewhere in the between, and they're totally, readable and hey, yeah, I can sing along with these, but I don't consider them great lyrics. And then there are a couple of lyrics which are actually way more leaning to black metal things, having topics to darkness and Satan and, midnight and all that stuff, which is then again something that could have been happening in the early black metal albums, even nowadays. But I guess my favorite goes And Then There Were None, which is very much like a nuclear war kind of a type of lyrics. And as such, they are kind of also the most typical, if any, kind of lyrics when it comes to thrash metal. I mean, thrash metal has been so often about societal issues, this and that problem in the world. So more like commenting, how the world is, for good and bad, and blah, blah, blah. But some of these lyrics are definitely something that you could give a couple of these lyrics to, I don't know, Cannibal Corpse or other death metal band. Yeah, hey, have these one. And you go ahead and take these black metal lyrics. Now, these lyrics on this album are not the forte side of the album, but to be honest, they're totally fine. They're totally okay, especially when we're talking about 1985 and how the rules of extreme metal were made back in the days. But what matters to me most is that I can totally get the energy from these riffs and vocals and just, the sound, even if it's a little bit kind of a lo-fi. But then again, you have to understand, debut album, a thrash metal band in mid-80s. It's not exactly the same that was going on with Iron Maiden back in the days during the same era. They were already a big band by the time Exodus kind of got into play and do their album. But everything here is pretty much wonderful, except for the lyrics, which are just kind of okay. And as such, this deserves the spotlight for old school thrash metal albums. No, it's no wonder really if people consider Bonded by Blood to be the best album by Exodus. At least it's the album that I've been mostly enjoying when it comes to Exodus. So for me, it's my favorite Exodus album. Now, I have to say it even though I don't like to admit it, but I've never been too big an Exodus fan. I mean, I like their thrash metal and all. Even some of the later albums have been good. But compared to any of these, Bonded by Blood is the shit. That's the album everybody should be listening to. So yeah, this is my love letter to Bonded by Blood. It's a great, great album. And if I had to, cut down my record collection to say 100 best albums of all time, maybe even 50, this is a huge likelihood that Bonded by Blood would be on that list. To be saved, not cut. because it's just great, it's fantastic, and it's a very, very good album to go to the gym with. Now, I know because before making this album I had a separate workout session doing powerlifting with various movements, and I was listening to Bonded by Blood. Actually did my bench press repetition personal best record by listening to this particular album. So it's fucking great, man, and I hope that you will give it another chance, even if you're not a thrash metalhead, because all thrash metalheads already know how great it is. But if you come from, say, death metal or black metal background, even doom metal, you should still give Bonded by Blood a chance. It's great and it's worth listening. Total gem, a legend in its own genre. Thank you for watching, and before I go, please give me suggestions and recommendations which ones you would like to have in Challenging the Classic video series. I'm looking forward for your comments, and meanwhile, go check out some Exodus.